Well, hello there, David Taylor on Mr Pelargonium, back with another video for the Pelargonium and Geranium Society. I've been away, I've been on holiday for 2 weeks, just returned. Thankfully, my daughter did a fantastic job in looking after my plants. But now I've come back, I've got an immense amount of work to do because autumn is well and truly kicking in now, and I've still got cutting back to do. I've still got lots of bits and pieces, cutting back of small plants, potting up of one or two things as well, and we'll go through that together. So let's get on with it. Hi there, well it's good to see you again. As I said, sort of slight apologies really. I haven't done many videos in recent weeks, primarily because I've been away on holiday. A good 2-week holiday in the sun in the Caribbean, so it's been really quite nice to have a bit of warm weather. But coming back to the cooler weather of the autumn has been a little bit of a shock to me, but I've got an awful lot to do. I've still got big plants outside to bring in. Thankfully, not that many, only a couple now. One of which we'll cut back today is a lovely Fair Ellen, which has done very well. I think you've probably seen images of that plant on both this channel and my own channel, Mr Pelargonium, Mr Pelargonium YouTube channel. But we've got one or two bits. I have done a lot of work in the few days that I have been back. Came back last Thursday. I'm filming this on Monday the 10th of October. The days are really getting short now. I've got this low sun now. I'm filming this fairly early in the morning, but I've got the low sun coming through on the side of my head. That end of the glass house now is totally shaded until sort of the afternoon. So the glass house is getting a bit cooler. Although the day, certainly in southern England here where I'm based, the day temperature is still relatively good. It's still getting up to sort of 17, 18 degrees centigrade during the day. So the plants are still growing a bit. There's still a bit of growth going on. Night temperatures are really beginning to drop now. And in fact, tonight, as I said, on the 10th of October, they are sort of forecasting the first touch of frost. So I may have to even consider flicking on the heater. I realise now that all around the world, heating costs are very much at the forefront of people's minds. And I'm very much going to be setting my thermostat a bit lower this coming winter. And the plants will have to sort of, take their chances to get through. Last winter, I had my thermostat set relatively high to keep all parts of my glass house sort of well above freezing. But this year, as I say, I think what I'm going to do is keep the coldest parts of the greenhouse reserved for those plants that can withstand a bit of cold, such as regals, sentids, uniques, the tougher type of plants that can withstand a bit of cold, zonals and zonal hybrids such as the stellas. They do require really a minimum of 5 degrees centigrade. So they'll be positioned probably in this central area where I have my heater warmth at its peak in the central area. So that's the way I'm going to have to plan it, I think. And that's probably something that you can think about doing yourself. Otherwise, if you do not want to use a heater, the things that you need to use are things like fleece. Keep your plants very, very dry. And cover them when there's particularly hard frost forecast. Keep them covered up. Newspapers, anything sort of dryish, fleece, that sort of thing when there are hard frost forecasts. The key thing is though, during the day, try and uncover them to give them a bit of light. And you may get through. If we have a prolonged, very cold snap in the winter, which we didn't really get in the UK last year, then you will need to maybe consider your options. But we'll talk about that perhaps should the time arise. Right, this is my plant of Orsett. I got hold of one of these from Fibrex Nursery and it's grown on very, very strongly. Right, so I'm initially just going to tidy it up. It's got a few yellow leaves. This is primarily because this got actually very dry when I was away. This is one of the minor failings of my daughter's watering. But it is pretty good. I mean, it doesn't mind. It's been in the shade. This is going to get a bit of a basic cutback, which is ideal, and it applies really to all of them. So the first thing you do when you bring a plant in from outside is inspect the basic pot plant. We've been through this before. Check that there's no slugs, snails and that sort of thing all around the base of the pots, because you don't want to be bringing those into your glass house. This one's been in here since just before I went away anyway. So this one was inspected. We're going to just remove all these yellowing leaves. Ooh, one or two of them are pretty tough. A lot of them have died. So you just need to make sure that you get all those off. And it's going to get a bit of a cutback. I mean, one of the overarching problems, of course, is unless you've got a monumental glass house, you know, you really do need to cut them back just primarily to fit them in. Now, I've got a really huge problem in that I have probably got about 100 cuttings that I've potted up. I finished potting up most of them just prior to going away on holiday. I mean, they're all this sort of size now. Many of them are growing on. I have to say that I grew on a number of them with the idea of getting over to Fibrex nurseries, but I think the news is generally out there now. Certainly the nursery themselves have announced it, but they are actually making 2023 their last trading season. A great disappointment because I was intending originally to get a good number of these cuttings over to them, planted cuttings that is, to grow on with hopefully the sense of selling at some point in the future after they trialled them. But that now won't be happening, and I've now got loads of cuttings that are sort of surplus to requirement. I will have to make a bit of a guess as to what I'm going to do with them all. But yeah, so room is always an issue in a busy greenhouse where you want to sort of take a lot of things through the winter. Now, the main thing I need to do on this is lose some height. Now, one could argue that I could take some cuttings from this, but realistically, I just haven't got the room anymore. So we're just tidying this. This is very healthy plant. I will take that leaf off because it is slightly yellowing. I'm going to try and whisk through this as quickly as possible. I mean, basically, the more, I think I've said primarily before that the more leaves and more sort of body you leave on the plant, the more you're going to have to continue to water it during the winter. So, you know, this is something that you need to consider. If there's a lot of flesh still on it, you're going to need to water it still. And so, you know, you do have to be a little bit careful. At the end of the day, it depends how much effort you want to put into looking after your plants during the winter. If you cut them back fairly hard, then they're not going to need a great deal of fuss. This is more or less sort of tip stopping some of the smaller branches. Now I've got a central branch there which I don't really need now. Again, when you're using knives, always be very careful. I think I will take that one right down. That pretty strong and tough. Now the good thing I say that I like about these sort of scented unique type plants is that they're pretty tough. These can handle down to freezing point really with no problem at all. And they can put on a fantastic show during the summer months. They can make a really fantastic display. This is a young plant. This whole branch can go down to now. I'm hopeful that you can see this in here. So there's a stem which has got stem breaks coming out on both sides of the node, which you do not often see much in pelargoniums. Right, what are we going to do with this one? Let's have a look here. Later decision, I've got a good triple stem breaking out there. I think I'm going to take the middle stem out. I've got a triple stem here, a very tall one in the middle, which I'm actually going to lose. And I'm going to take that one out, middle of that one. I'll take that yellow leaf off there. And I'm going to stop that just in there. I mean, this will continue to grow fairly fast during the winter, like most of the uniques do. They'll slow up to the turn of the year. Now, you can strip down these leaves even more, to be quite honest. I'm going to strip this one off just to sort of contain it a bit. Because as I say, room's an issue for everybody, including me. Now, I potted this up in August. I can see, so only August, September, October, so only just over a couple of months ago. So this is ideal, this pot now, to get this through the winter. The roots would have filled this pot up. So, you know, that's going to be good to get through the winter. It's not over potted. Right, so I think we're just about done on that one. That's got a spot in it, so I'll get rid of that leaf. Any marked leaves at all, get rid of. Any type of mark on them whatsoever, get rid of. And get rid of sort of as many stipples as you can, because as I've always said, once we get into the real depths of the winter, when we start getting lots of damp, that can cause a few issues. Right, so there we are. We're just about done on that one. That's as good as that's going to get, I think. I don't want to take that down any further. Now, something that I do want to do, this standard here of Orsett, but it's got some really, really good root breaks that I want to take up and grow on because I love Bolero. Bolero is a fantastic plant. There's a couple of flower breaks on there that I'm going to cut off, which I'll show you in a moment. But this was brought in just literally before I went away on holiday. And I can see the base of this plant has got a bit of chewing going on. And lo and behold, there it is. There's a caterpillar on there. Chewing away. I'm going to have to grab it now because they drop off. In fact, it has dropped off, but it's dropped down onto the leaf below. They're very good at sort of protecting themselves. Now, what I will do with that, I will let nature take its course. I won't kill it, but I'll put it outside for the birds to get because the birds will have that. Right, I may find a few more because I've got a few other bits of nibble there. I'll just home in. So what I intend to do here with these root breaks, these can easily be pulled up. I mean, they're perfectly formed. There's no leaf gall or anything like that on this plant. The cuttings and the root breaks or the root cuttings as they will be, as they ultimately will be, are perfectly formed. There's no problem at all. So what we'll do, we'll just tidy this standard up. It's done very well, actually. Now I've got a bit of a problem with this side sun here because I've got, of course, no shading up anymore. Right, so let's go down. Now what you can do, you really just need to pull these up, but if you get hold very much of the base, now I'm going to just go into that knife. I'm just going to take this leaf off because this is the one that was chewed up by that caterpillar that I've just thrown out. Now what you can do is just grab hold of these and go right down to the base, and you should be able to just loosen them, and you can pull it round, and there we are. Look at that, the perfect cutting. Right, now these are root breaks. These, you often get these on standards. You'll have the roots filtering out into the compost relatively sort of high up to the level of the compost, and you will get all these little root breaks, root cuttings coming through. And this is the ideal cutting. I mean, that is a rooted plant effectively, and you know there's no concern there whatsoever. That will grow. Don't need to root it. It's already rooted. That's had a little bit of a chew on it from one of the caterpillars that I've got rid of. But there we are, we'll put that on in a moment. Just lose that leaf there. So let's have a look at this other one. We've got another one here. The thing as well is by doing this is that you're redirecting the energy of the growth into the main plant, which is what you're wanting. Oh, that's come as a bit of a tear. Yay, look at that. Yeah, that's got a little bit of root on it, so that one's better as well, although not as good as the last one. Just snap that back. So there we are, we've got some. I will need to just check these, make sure there's no caterpillar. I think I've got the bulk of them now actually. Get rid of that. There we are, that's quite a good one. That's got a little bit of root growth on there, which is good. Got a bit of compost here ready to sort of pot these up. You don't want to put them in very big plant. Now we've got a youngster here. That's a leaf, look at that. Got a youngster here. Yeah, I've been over it. The trouble with the really young breaks, which is why it's good to grow them on a bit, is because it's quite difficult to get hold of those sometimes, and I've snapped that one, so that's no good anyway now. This is a flower stem mostly, and I'm just going to cut that off. Now there we are, that's a flower stem, it's quite thin, so I've just nipped that off, just to give it a bit of a show. I'm struggling here with the sun in my eyes. I might let that one just continue to grow. A little bit like Regals, these uniques have a flowering stem and a growth stem. The flowering stem is usually thinner, a lot thinner. And usually obviously has flower at the end of it. This head is not huge anyway, so I'm not overly concerned about cutting it back that hard. I might de-leaf it a bit. But I find the majority of Regals and Uniques and that type don't suffer too much from botrytis. It's the zonals where I'm still continuing to strip back leaves when I get the chance, that suffer really badly from botrytis. So it's very important to strip back your leaves, strip as many leaves off as possible. So I'm just literally stripping that now. Here's another flower stem. Little thin stem, you see, completely obviously a flower stem, it's very thin. I think these caterpillars, they were going up to there, then going back down to the base overnight. Majority of caterpillars, well, they're from moths, and the majority of them will feed overnight. They're not active during the day. They like to chew about at night. Right, that's fine. I mean, it may take a few more leaves of that off as the time goes on. Drop that down. I'm quite happy with that. Just see another marked leaf there, which I will take off. And we've got a couple of sort of rooted cuttings to pot on then. And I have got some compost here already made up and some potting up I did yesterday actually. Right, so what I'm basically going to do here, just put a little bit in the base, about 1/2 inch or so. Then I can sit this crooked root that's there to more or less centralise this stem. Sit it in, much like that. And then I can drop the compost on around it and that'll sort of firm it in. This is Bolero. Must label it correctly, getting me plants muddled up now. Now this giant one here, now there's not that much root on this one, but I think it will grow fairly quickly at this time of year. As it really doesn't mind the cooler sort of conditions to grow on. It's a good strong plant. I'm just going to break that off purely because the leaves are a little bit dirty. I'm sort of double checking that there is no caterpillar on there. This will need a bigger pot though, and this can effectively be filled right up really. And then because it's literally a tube, I could just stick my knife down in there, make a little hole, and go like that. It is a giant, this one, as a youngster. So I will need to firm it. It may fall over. I may even need to put a little stick in there to keep it upright. There we are. Let me just go down and hold it in place. Firm it down. So there we are then, a couple of labels, Bolero. With sort of fibrets closing, which was always the main source of new plants for myself, we've now got to be sort of taking, cuttings and having reserve plants so that if you do lose one, and as I say, my biggest problem is mealybug that we get here in southern England. Now I would just sit these in a soil so to water up. They should root or grow on relatively quickly. They've got a bit of root anyway. But yeah, so it's important for me to have backup plants, and I would always recommend that for anybody anyway. Give yourself a bit of plant backup, particularly as we go into the winter, because of course at this time of year you may lose plants through the winter, but if you've got 2 or 3 of them, you've got a chance of getting at least one of the varieties that you like to keep through that winter period if you do lose 1 or 2 of them. So there we are, that's just about it from me today. I've taken a couple of root cuttings out from a plant that's grown on, one of my standards, cutting back plants, cleaning up. It's a constant process now in the autumn of stripping down your plants and sort of keeping them tidy, stopping botrytis from starting to get a hold, which is always a problem at this time of year. If you go over to my Mr Pelargonium YouTube channel, I'm going to cut back a fair Ellen, but I'm also probably going to film another video for the Pelargonium and Geranium Society this afternoon. Perhaps have a look around some of the plants that I've brought in already, just to give you a bit of a sort of note of things that I've been up to and things that I've been doing as we go into this autumn period to prepare for winter. So there we are. Remember, if you're not subscribed, think about clicking that subscribe button and putting your notifications on when I do a new video. I'll be doing plenty over the next few weeks. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye for now.